Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I just want to say that before you scroll past this video, if you are a parent with children in school or you are someone concerned about education, don't scroll. Maybe you may learn one or two things. Of late, we have been looking for a school for our kids, and my wife has said we need to take them to a good school for better education. And my question has been, what is better education? And what is a good school? Is it a school where you pay a lot of money? Is it a school where children learn something? So in my quest to understand what good education is, I have done a bit of reading, and I found that education is not everything that happens at school, but what happens at home. How can I put this? What is education in the first place? Education is just a process of acquiring knowledge, skills that is going to knowledge and skills that are going to better someone's life. So if really education is about human development, it's about betterment of the quality of life, then is it really about how much you pay or how much our children learn and how they are able to use that information? Now, yes, I might disagree or agree with some of you, especially parents, who value or who look at the value of education in terms of how much you are putting in terms of money. But I want to say that 90% of education happens at home and not at school. Now, before I go any further, let me clarify this. There is formal learning which happens at school, which was brought to us by the colonizers, and the African child does not necessarily learn by sitting in class. You agree with me later, but I'll make my case. The African child traditionally and culturally learns by participating in activities. Now, I'll take you back a little in our history. When you look at what is called traditional education or informal education, our forefathers and our foremothers, they learned by participating in the activities of the community. And those activities were meant for them to be better people, to advance the communities and societies in which they lived. When formal education came, it separated children from their parents and also their communities. In some way, it also separated them from their culture. And so when children, for example, go to school, when talking to the teachers, they are taught to stand up, raise their hand and stand up, which is totally different from our culture, where you are supposed to have children seated while talking to the adults or to the elders in the community. A child learns crafts like hunting, food gathering by going with adults or more capable peers who knew the craft, and learning by observation and by doing it practically. Now, what formal education introduced was theoretical learning, where you are exposed to theories and other academic concepts that may not even necessarily apply in your real life cultural and social context. Now, so when we think about taking children to a good school, is it a school that gives them practical lessons that help them change their lives? Or is it a school where you pay a lot of money and they're able to read and write? Because there is a tendency of parents to measure the level of education, one, by the kind of English a child is going to speak, two, by the fluency in reading and writing, and three, by the maybe astuteness. I don't know if that's a word even. Yeah, but how astute a child will look among others, or how clever a child is going to look among other kids. But I want to tell you that that's not education. education is not about English. Education is having a child learning how to make money, learning how to survive by gaining a practical skill. For example, is a child able to survive by engaging in carpentry, to survive by doing some form of landscaping, doing actual things with hands? And I think this is what the Bible says or means when it says train the child when he's still young, for when he or she grows up, she will not depart from it. Now, this formal education came and we accepted it as Africans, and yeah, we go to school, we learn about grasshoppers, we learn about the internal structures of things, which is very good because we need to understand those things. For example, for us to tackle the diseases in agriculture, we need to know the structure of insects that eat our crops. Very good stuff to learn. But we really don't learn how to practically do the agriculture, productive agriculture, that is going to feed our nation. That's why 60 years, for example, in Zambia after independence, we can still cry to Ukraine for not giving us grain. It's so shameful somehow, because when we learn, when we go to school, are we actually learning, or we are just memorizing concepts, becoming bookworms, knowing everything about something but having no clue on how to actually do what we know? So there has been this misconception of what education really is, because education is not how much information you get from books. Education is about how skillful you become when you have undergone through the training, when you have undergone through an education system. So for me, informal education that happens at home, that is the best education. Now, I can give you a practical example of what I'm talking about. Indians, just like Zambians, were colonized, but we Zambians adopted, I can simply say, we dropped our informal education or traditional education where we learned skills by doing, and adopted the formal education and pushed our indigenous education to the periphery. Indians adopted formal education and adapted their indigenous education within it. So it's like weaving two different types of education systems or education ideologies into one system. This is why today we can say, I think there are more technicians, there are more developers. I think a lot of Indians doing great things in the world. If you look at America, if you look at Western worlds, a lot of Indians are in the tech business. Why? Because they know how to combine their indigenous education, learning by doing, and also learning, combining that theoretical aspect to it. If you look at the Indian community in Zambia, we live with them, but we do not learn from them. What do I mean? Look at how an Indian child, as young as 7 years, when you go to an Indian shop, you find that child in the shop sitting at the counter with his or her parents. You find that child helping in the shops. Why? Because, like I said, learning a business skill, learning a craft does not happen in the classroom. It happens in the real life context, like in the shop. That child, from as early as 5 years, they know how to punch, they know how to use the machine, the till machine in the shop. They know how to calculate profits and losses. They know where to order their products and how to sell, how to convince them, how to save customers. That is the best education you can give to your child, because it is practical and meaningful to your context. And yes, in Zambia, if you go to Kamwala market, you find that a lot of Indian shops, they are running those businesses. Why? Because that is the skill they know well. That is the skill they have transferred to the young ones, and they have not done that in the classroom. They have done that right in the shop. where things are happening within the context. So indigenous education is so important that when we think about quality education, we think about going to a very expensive school where a child is going to speak English. So what? What if a child doesn't speak good English, but they are able to run a business? They have learned a business from their childhood. For us, again, we were confounded. When we wanted to train our children when they are young, someone came up with the child labor rule. They said it's child labor. Is it child labor or child training? We adopt a lot of things that we do not really understand, and all these things that come from the West, we know they are not just meant to help us. They are meant to help themselves. So when you think about education, do not just think about what your child will learn at school. 90% of education should be what you do with your child at home in the real life contexts. If you are doing business, some of you parents will even say, no, this child is young. They can't learn this. No, a child cannot handle money. First, let him grow. When will the child learn how to make money on his own? Is it not at a tender age that we should train our children to make money? So it's up to you to choose a good school, go to a very expensive school. It is very important that you do that. I am not discrediting good education in very expensive schools. I am just saying that the education of your child does not lie in the hands of the teachers in a formal classroom. It lies with you at home, because that is where real education happens. That is where you can train a child when and while he is still young. Thank you so much.